trends can change suddenly. Your marketing strategy should change with it. Let your data lead. Visit the page to learn more.
Hey everyone, welcome to Ad Age Remotely. I'm Ishan Sherwood, Associate Creativity Editor here at Ad Age. Thanks for joining us. This is going to be a fun one. So first off, a special thank you to our sponsor, Salesforce, for helping to make this live stream happen. Today, I am joined by actor and producer John Leguizamo and David Chitel, the founders of Latinx media company NGL Collective.
Hey, how are you? How's it going?
Hey guys.
Good morning.
How y'all doing? I'm here in Savannah, Georgia. I want to say hello to y'all.
You on vacation or you shooting?
I look like I'm on vacation in this tiny hotel room. No, I'm here working on this great new flick called The Menu with the lead of Queen's Gambit, Anya Taylor-Joy, and the director and creator of Succession, Mark Mylod. I'm a name-dropping fool.
That's why we're here. Speaking of which, so NGL Collective, the two of you founded it in 2010. David, can you kick it off for us? Just tell us a little bit about NGL Collective and what are all the different verticals it encompasses?
Sure. So this is actually mine and John's second company together. Our first one, some of you old school people out there might remember Ay Caramba, later Latcom. It's a whole other story. But NGL stands for New Generation Latinx Collective. We're the leading independent Latinx media and entertainment company, co-founded, as you said, back in 2010-ish. And NGL works with advertisers, content creators, celebrities, influencers, and really connects all those dots through media and entertainment, to bring it all together for those looking to connect with the Latinx audience. And sort of a flywheel of media, studios, social, live, and something we call NGL Solutions.
And Dave Chitel, my partner here, is a little humble because he actually was one of the first people in the digital space to create sort of a Facebook, the precursor to Facebook, and all with Latinx kids in colleges, and it was way before Facebook. So he's a pioneer of sorts that doesn't get the credit for creating that sort of format.
I remember Ay Caramba was with the letter I, right? And that was pre-iPhone. Right. So
that is right. How did you know that?
Where did Apple get the idea? Just
unbelievable.
David, you're such a pioneer, man.
Yeah, I know.
Pioneer.
Yeah, it was quite an epiphany when I realized the Ay Caramba would just play so well.
Yeah, NGL creates the opportunity for Latin people, Latinx or Latina, as a Latino, Latina, to find themselves, to find content that talks to them, where they can see themselves, where they can see their lives reflected back, where they can feel validated. And so we're creating that opportunity for them to have a space to put their information and a space where they can get the information that talks to them. Latinx people who grew up in America, we English is our dominant language. Spanish is, important to us and part of our lives. I speak Spanish. Yo hablo español todos los días. Every day I speak a little Spanish. It's part of my life. But English is my dominant culture, and I like to be represented in that language.
So, speaking of which, when I talk to celebrities, if I may call you a celebrity, John, who
I like movie star, but I'll take celebrity.
I'll go with a movie star. When I talk to movie stars, as I often do, who own media or production companies, well, like for example, when Shaquille O'Neal started his ad agency last year, he was like, "Look, am I in the office every single day? No, but I see everything and I am involved in everything." So, John, can you talk a little bit about your involvement in NGL?
Yeah, well, NGL, obviously more in the entertainment part of NGL, the studios, and we've done a couple of documentaries for PBS and American Masters, one on Raul Julia. We got a great one coming out on PBS again on Latin representation in Hollywood, and we've done some PepsiCo and some other spots. So I am involved in the creation of developing and producing content.
Yeah, John's really an ambassador for all things new generation Latino, both through what he does in his career and through us. He does a lot of these speaking engagements, sort of, talking about the market as a whole and the opportunity to connect with it through media and entertainment, which of course is what we do. And we've done quite a bit of work with him in the creative side of what we do for sure. And he's very good at PowerPoint as well. I just wanted to point that out. He's
pretty
unbelievable.
good.
Yes.
We just went to Procter & Gamble in Ohio this past month, live. We did a sort of a representation of what Latinx are looking for, what generation Latinxers are looking for, what we need, what our needs are, what our wants are. And that's what I do. As an ambassador, I go then I talk to companies and corporations and boost all the Latinx who are employees of these corporations and hopefully bring in some of the other execs into understanding how important this community is. The largest ethnic group in America after white people, the second oldest ethnic group after, no, because then we'll be even bigger. Right. Yeah. Then we'll be number one, which is, I guess, the fear of a brown planet in America right now. But we're good people. We're loving people. We're inclusive people. We don't exclude anyone. So you're lucky if we run things.
Can you actually, David, you coined the term new generation.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what that means?
Sure. Well, actually, before we formed NGL Collective, there was an organization called New Generation Latino Consortium. And it was all about talking about the bilingual, bicultural Latino that was, born here for the most part, or has lived here for the majority of their lives, and was largely otherwise overlooked. And so we did conferences. This is going back to early 2000s. John has been at many of them. We did the first ever Latinx TED Talk, if you can believe that. We did research studies. So we've been definitely talking about this space for a long time. More, way, as you said in the beginning, John, before a lot of other people were talking about it. And new generation is here to stay. It's the generation. The majority of Latinos in this country were born here. So this is actually not a new thing, but something that we spent a lot of time, being the ambassadors of this. And John, who better than John to deliver that message? So when we had to choose, who's the best partner, it was hands down, John was the best person to deliver that message. And he does that regardless of his work with NGL, of course.
No, obviously NGL is a great platform for me to get my leadership qualities improved, to reach the maximum amount of people and eyeballs who this content is important to. Because the Latinx community is such an important, thriving community in America. We add $260 billion to the taxes in America. We $2.3 trillion we add to the GDP. Our contributions are massive. Latin women are number one in business creations at 87%. We saved the housing market 2 years ago at 68%. So our contributions are outsized for the size of our community.
So speaking of which, it is Hispanic Heritage Month, and that means that Hispanicize 2021, the virtual summit, is just around the corner. It is in its 11th year. I actually remember sending reporters to Miami back in 2014 to cover Hispanicize. So David,
thank you for that. Thank you for your support.
It was a good time.
I appreciate it. No, for real. I love my allies. I think in the Latin community, we need our allies, and I always want to pay tribute to those who help us represent.
So for the uninitiated, David, can you explain what Hispanicize is and what can attendees expect for this year?
Yeah, so Hispanicize is the largest gathering of Latinx influencers, content creators, entrepreneurs, media and entertainment innovators, community leaders, all aimed at being a force for good through diversity, empowerment, education, celebration, anything else you can think of, entertainment. And NGL acquired Hispanicize in 2019. I am not the founder of Hispanicize. It had been around for, as I said, about 10 years. We celebrated its 10th anniversary in October of 2019. John was there in Los Angeles with his friend Rosie Perez and others. And the world sort of changed a little bit in 2020. And we went from being the largest in-person gathering of said group to the largest virtual gathering. And now we're reaching tens of thousands of people every time we put on one of these events. Oh, and by the way, it's free to attend. So reaching the masses has always been one of the focal points of what Hispanicize had aspired to be. So it turns out necessity was the mother of invention. And this Hispanic Heritage Month, we've actually been celebrating since September 15th, which is the beginning of our month. And we'll be celebrating through October 15th. We've been doing a series of vodcasts on things like unity and empowerment, which we have coming up this week with John, yours truly here, and we're going to be showing again at our main event on October 15th. We have the star of Cobra Kai, Xolo Maridueña, and other young Latinx Hollywood up-and-comers. We did a music panel earlier this week. But October 15th is really the big event. It's happening starting at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern, where we're going to have a full day, a full program, lots of other, as I said, celebrities, influencers, and such. And it's also, we're bringing back something called the TECLA Awards. So it's like the Latinx Webby Awards, where we're going to be honoring and acknowledging the top Latinx influencers and content creators. So lots of surprises planned for October the 15th. And that'll be capping off an incredible Hispanic Heritage Month. Oh, and by the way, for the first time, we're doing it simultaneously in Los Angeles live, as well as in Miami. So definitely representing different aspects of Latinx, community throughout that day. And there'll be some people who are live and in person, controlled group, I should say, in studio, but most will be watching it virtually.
It's interesting. We don't even get a real month. Latin History Month is not a month. It's a window. We get a window from September 15th to October 15th. At least it's better than the Afro-American community that get the shortest month of the year for Black History Month. So at least we got a little better than Afro-American.
Although they didn't give you the bridge between 2 months that had 31 days. It was 30 days.
This is true. We're celebrating all 30, and we celebrate 12 months a year at NGL, of course, as we should.
Latin History Month should be celebrated every month of every year.
There you go.
How is it that people who are watching this? Oh, by the way, there's a registration link on adage.com. But people who are watching community or sponsors, how can they get involved?
Yeah, so Hispanicize.com is where you could go to find out anything and everything. That's where we're going to be streaming live on October the 15th. Sponsors want to get involved. We have many, many sponsors who have already joined on. I think we have, almost 15 sponsors at the moment. You can always email us at sales@nglmedia.com. Talk to my friend and colleague, Joe Bernard. We'd love to have you as a sponsor, but time is running short. So please jump on that now.
No, I will say, since COVID, our schedules have been replete with virtual conferences.
Yeah.
So what is the benefit for the Latinx community from Hispanicize?
Yeah. So, really sort of the spokes of the wheel, if you will, is, celebration, number one. So we're telling our stories across all aspects of what we're doing, shining a positive light on the community. It's entertaining. There's musical performances. There's interactive opportunities to win things and have a good time, if you will. It's more like a show than it is, a typical sort of online talk. It's all about empowerment. So it's about giving Latinx people and small businesses, in some cases, a platform to promote themselves and their stories. We're educating. We've done Hispanicizes that are specific to topics like COVID recovery, for example, and we're always educating people about the Latinx community and important issues surrounding it. And equally important, it's about diversity. It's about representing all of the different colors and textures that make up the Latinx community, from LGBTQ+, Afro-Latinx, and others. So it's really an embodiment of all of that. So as you can see, we're packing a lot in. We do it all year long, but this is sort of the culmination of it with this summit.
And
John,
Latinx people, Latinx people are really on the digital platforms. I mean, that's where our empowerment happens. That's where our controlling the narrative starts to happen. You go on the gram, you go on Facebook. There's so much great Latinx content, and that's where we're getting our chance, because it's the place that's the fairest and the most democratic. Because studios and networks and streamers are still behind. They're still behind. It's unbelievable. Here we are in 2021, and they're still behind. Our representation improved by 1%. It used to be 3% of faces in front of the camera were Latin, and now this year it was 4.5, even though there wasn't that much production. Maybe that's why. But the census is out, and I think that's an important instrument that helps us figure out what is equitable and what is fair. And white people are 60% of the population. We Latin people are almost 20% of the population. I think those metrics work. I want 20% representation in front of the camera, behind the camera, executives, and I tell executives, this is the way you can see it. You have 10 characters or actors in that film. 2 of those need to be Latin people. You have 10 executives in your studio. 2 of those need to be Latin people. You have 10 TV shows. 2 of those need to be Latin shows. That's fair and equitable. I mean, I know Latin people outsized perform because we are 25% of the U.S. box office and huge streamers, huge. But I'll settle for 20%, and that's what's fair and equitable. And I think that's what studios need to start doing behind the camera, in front of the camera, all media, newscasters, publishing, corporations. I think that's the fair request. I mean, with the amount of money that we put into, if we were the Latinx community in the United States, if we were our own country, we'd be the 11th largest economy in the world. Think about that.
Yeah, these are well-known facts. And I'll also mention, the advertiser spend, since this is ad age, it'd be nice to get into the double digits on a percentage basis of overall ad spend too. I think we can get there, especially as we talk about, as you said, new generation Latinos. It's really about including the entire pie, not just necessarily the Spanish-speaking section of the U.S. Hispanic market. There are many more who are bilingual and bicultural, and by embracing that is how we will get to a more fair and equitable share of the ad spend as well.
So I do want to get your takes on the ins and outs of running a production company. But before we do that, if you are watching on social media, you're watching on adage.com, give us a shout out in comments. Let us know where you're watching from, because it could be from anywhere. And if you've got questions for John or David, throw them in and maybe we'll be able to get some. And we also have a message from our sponsor, Salesforce.
Marketers don't need a crystal ball when they have real-time insights. Let your data lead. Visit the page to learn more.
Welcome back. I'm Mishan Sherwood, Associate Creativity Editor here at Ad Age, and I'm speaking with John Leguizamo and David Chitel. So we've already started to get into this a little bit, but I want to keep following this train of thought that we're on. So NGL Collective has evolved since the 2 of you founded it in 2010. You've added more verticals. Like you said, it's not the first media venture that the 2 of you embarked on. John, can you talk about why is it so important for there to be media and production companies owned specifically by Latinx people?
Well, I mean, there's such a sense of psychosocial erasure of our stories, Latinx stories, our contributions in this country. I did this little show called Latin History for Morons where, because I looked at my son's history textbook and I could not find anything about our contributions. So I started doing my own research. And the things that I found out were astronomical. I mean, we're the only group that's fought in every single war America's ever had. And I'm talking about the American Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War I. 500,000 of us fought in World War II. In the American Revolution, we were 1 in 8 of the soldiers of the patriots fighting. And we funded the American Revolution. Juan de Marias got $2 million from Cuba, Mexico, and Spain and gave them to George Washington. I mean, it was astronomical that this doesn't exist. So we Latin people need to start controlling the narrative, because the narrative that's being told about us, first of all, is not inclusive of all our contributions, and it's negative. So what we need to do is the gatekeepers need to look like us so that they understand our stories, so that they care about our stories. Because I've been pitching stories for 35 years to Hollywood, and I never understood why none of my scripts would ever get made, or other people's scripts that I was trying to produce. And I thought maybe that the quality's not good enough. Maybe I don't know. But I'm having success on Broadway, and I'm getting awards for my writing. I just don't understand why I can't. And it was the gatekeepers were never going to greenlight a Latin project. If I turned these stories into white stories with American names, it would have got done. A friend of mine, I'm not going to say her name, but she's like a dark-skinned Latina. She did a test a couple of years back, and she sent out a resume, one with her Latin name and one with a Americanized name. The Latin headshot got no response. The one, a dark-skinned Latin person, but with an American name, got callbacks. So that's part of the systemic racism that we were dealing with. And if we can control our stories, if we can be producing and have executives in the streamers at Netflix, at Amazon, at Hulu, at Disney, at Viacom, I think that's going to make the difference.
It reminds me of what you said earlier, that Latin women have like a higher percentage of starting their own businesses.
Small
So
business
is it
creation, yeah.
essentially like, okay, like if no one's going to hand this to us, let's just do it ourselves, and then we can decide who's behind the camera and who's in front of the camera?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of content being created on, like I said, on the gram. I mean, great comedy skits that just brilliant on Facebook. But the networks, but we also need to be part of the mainstream. You know, I mean, we can do our underground independent work, but the studios need to catch up. I mean, we're 25% of the U.S. box office. That's huge. That's not a incremental, bottom line. It's huge amounts of dollars. And more importantly, what does it do to the youth? If children who look like me can't see themselves represented, the messaging is so powerful that when you're not included, the message is you don't matter, you don't count, you're not important. And that also influences the way others look at you. If they don't see you represented positively or even represented, they don't know that they should be respecting you or that you've done anything of value, contributed to America. So, Latin children are the least represented in children's picture books. It starts even at that age. And we're almost 50% of the students in all the public schools across America. So I know I may sound like a broken record, but we need 20% representation in children's picture books and executives, corporations, everywhere to create some kind of parity.
Can we talk a little bit about like what does this audience look like? Like who is the new generation Latinx person? Because I think, it's such a huge diaspora, both from, country of like ancestral origin, but also, not everybody speaks Spanish. Like for so many years, the sort of driving force was assimilation, like be as much like white culture as you possibly can be. And, now we're moving more toward like acculturation and, be whoever it is that you decide that you want to be. So David, who is it that the media companies should be talking to?
Yeah. Well, in media, we like to put everything into a box, right? Adults 18 to 49. What does an 18-year-old have in common with a 49-year-old? Not a heck of a lot. So in our case, this is one of the issues we face in the Latinx community, in that there's, John, correct me if I'm wrong, 23 different nationalities, right? Mm-hmm. There's, I'll say 5 regionalities, New York, Florida, Midwest, Texas, California. You have different levels of, acculturation is the term in those markets. And so I actually once wrote a piece on this, and I did the math, and it came out to 7,000 different combinations of what it meant to be new generation Latino. And, I would say John is really the embodiment. It's amazing, how we came together and look at all of his shows, and in particular, the last one, and the people that it appeals to. John can talk about the audiences, his show reaches, and there's common threads that go throughout all of it, that it's not about any one sector. And there's many things that bring our community together. I will say, at NGL, we follow something called the 300% approach in language, in culture, and in context. In language, of course, being in Spanish, in culture, meaning it's Latinx, but not necessarily in Spanish. It's bilingual or in English. And in context is Latinx are human beings who don't always need to be targeted, in either of those things. John loves basketball. Why? Because he loves sports. Do you know what I mean? And put people in any one box, it's quite difficult, in particular with our community. And now, as John alluded to earlier, with the advent of technology and digital and the ability to target, I think this sort of equalizes a lot of it. And I'm just hoping more and more people can embrace, again, the totality of the Latinx community and not just any one sector of it.
Yeah, I mean, we all speak Spanish and we have similar music tastes. Even though we have different music that was created, mambo, salsa, merengue, bachata, cumbia, mariachis, but we all love the music of everybody else, and we understand it, and we celebrate all the music. We have a little bit of different slang, but our similarities are so much more important than our slight differences. Just because I can speak Spanish doesn't mean I'm against speaking English or that there's a mutual exclusivity that starts to happen. No, I can have 2 cultures and be richer for it. And one does not have to exclude the other. It just makes you sharper and have more. That's why being Latin is a superpower, actually. When I travel around the country with my shows, yeah, like white people, Southern white people are different than New England white people, and different than California, and different than the Midwest. There are differences that exist because of regionality. But when I travel to Texas, and Texas is huge for me, there's a huge Latin population. There are about 40% of the population of Texas, and there's mostly Mexican. And they come to my shows, and I feel like I'm in New York, the way they hoot and holler, and it gets call and response, and they share the same sort of experience as a person of color in America. And when I go to Denver, is the same thing. Or if I go to Miami, it's the same thing. Even though Miami's mostly Cuban and Venezuelan, and Denver's more Mexican, but it's still, I feel we have so much similarity in our experience as people of color in America, and because of our language similarities in Spanish and English, and our food and our music, we are cohesive.
So I want to make sure that we get to this. John, I would like you to continue to be a broken record for a little bit. You're saying 20% would be equitable. You've been in entertainment for decades now. What does Latinx representation in media and entertainment look like compared to, say, 30 years ago? Has there been progress?
Oh, yeah, a little bit. I mean, not as much. I mean, definitely in the 80s, when I was coming up, we started to see some representation, and we thought, oh my God, we finally have arrived. They finally see us, in Mambo Kings. Then in the 90s came La Bamba, and Blood In, Blood Out, American Me, Mi Familia, Selena. We started to see, okay, they see us. And then with the crash, it was a big devastation for people of color, Black and Latin people. We kind of disappeared completely out of movies, and hopefully it's changing now. I mean, definitely now we're at 4.5%. Hopefully next year will be 5.5%. We still have a long ways to go, and the studios are trying. I really feel like Viacom is trying. They have one Latin executive now, Nina Diaz. They also gave Eva Longoria, Angela Bassett, myself, Salma Hayek, producership to bring new Latin talent and produce their movies. I know Netflix has a couple of executives, Rodrigo Mason, in Amazon International. I mean, I think they're really trying. I really feel like the studios, this COVID experience has really made America reboot itself and look at itself under a microscope and go, hey, we're not doing things right, and we need to do better. And all of a sudden, we heard Black Lives Matter for the first time, because Black Lives Matter has existed for a long time, but nobody was listening. But now they're listening. And I think that's happened all around in corporations. And I'm very hopeful in the next 5 years we're going to see closer to parity.
Yeah, it's interesting how you talk about all of these executives at these media companies, and really what we're talking about, TV pilots and things like that is creating culture, music, and things like that. And it always reminds me that obviously there's a wide range of Latinx people in the country, but it does skew younger, and that is often where culture is made. I think it's like 50,000 Latinx people turn 18 every month.
And we look young for a long time,
and then can vote.
And we look young for a long time because look at Brown Don't Break Down.
So David, can you talk a bit about on the business end, the back end of that? How do you push that forward? How can someone in the audience advocate for this if they don't necessarily have a platform like this or movies like a movie star, for example?
Well, the first thing they could do is attend Hispanicize on October 15th. I'm not kidding. I mean, it really is. It creates a dialogue. It's a lightning rod, if you will, to essentially talk about all these things: celebration, entertainment, empowerment, education, diversity, inclusion, all that. And also, I would say, use your voice, use social. This is a connected generation, born connected. We're the youngest demographic, as you were saying. Use your voice and use it loud, and try to come together with unified messaging. I'll say that's the most difficult thing, sort of deciding what our points are we want to make and making them succinctly and clearly as a community. I think the African American community has done a great job of that, and I think in our community we could follow the lead that we've learned, especially recently with all that's gone on with social justice. We need to do more of that ourselves, and I think Hispanicize is just one embodiment of that. But there's many organizations doing great things as well.
All right, I want to talk about Super Mario Brothers for like 20 minutes, but I think we're out of time.
Oh, come on.
They might do a remake. They keep talking about a remake. Obviously not with us in it, with new stars. Yeah.
I think cameos. Cameos are big.
Got it. I mean, we lost a few of the originals. Rest in peace, Dennis Hopper and Bob Hoskins. But the rest of us are still here.
All right. So thank you, John and David, for joining us. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks for having us, man.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you also to our sponsor, Salesforce. And as always, thank you to our Ad Age crew behind the scenes, Arabella Breck, Alfred Mascaroni, and Anna Sekula for making this live stream happen. Thanks all.